How does the family board works?
Cool.
Like, is it like the elder, then the advisors, or is it elder, then the sons, then the advisors? How does that work?
How does the family board work? It doesn't. that's,
It
that's the first answer. Not all family members are meant to be on the board. Sometimes it will actually save you money. And these I'm roughly translating his words, so he'll have to forgive me. Sometimes it's cheaper to pay certain family members to not be on the board, to not be involved in business decisions, to not be involved in the family business, than it is to have them involved. They can cause more damage and harm there. So I think now you're going into a long kind of discussion here, and I'll try and keep it brief because I've stated my message 100 times with different family offices and succession planning. Just being born to the chairman doesn't mean that you are going to be the chairman. It doesn't mean you have the skill sets. Doesn't mean we're all unique. We all have different fingerprints. And family offices here, majority are first generation. And so we're learning as we go. And as a result, a lot of families and a lot of fathers want to give their children things that they didn't have. So aside from financially, freedom and flexibility to do what they want. So they say, you grow up, you have fun, you enjoy your time, go to university, study what you want. And then when they come back and they say, right, time to join the family office, they're surprised when the kid says, no, Dad, I'm a DJ now.
Hmm.
And they're like, how could this have happened? Of course. Because family generations of old, or third, fourth, fifth family generations, etc., will train their children from a young age, get them excited about the family business, have them around board meetings, have them around these social gatherings, educate them towards it. Now then, at the end, if they choose to not join, they have the ability to, but they choose not to. Versus what we've done is, unfortunately, and I use this analogy a few times, it's like throwing money into the ocean and hoping some of it comes back. Once the child has created their own way of life away from the family, it's going to be very, very hard to bring them back. And unfortunately, sometimes the person you bring back is not a person that is capable of running the family business. So family boards, typically the way they are is chairman will be the father, the grandfather, whomever started the business. Well into his 60s, 80s, 90s, however long he's around for, he will still be chairman, and chairman is chairman. And that's our family dynamic. So that is our board dynamic, and that's the way it is. Is it always healthy? No. I think that, as we have problems with politicians sometimes being far too old, we sometimes have the problem with certain chairmen being in the business for too long. And it's very difficult to go to your father or grandfather and say, why don't you relax and retire? He built everything that is around you. All the wealth is as a result of him. How are you supposed to go and approach that? Now, in Europe, it's very easy. They usually have written into the bylaws, once you hit 65, you take more of a passive role or otherwise. There's no bylaws here. We don't have majority of family offices don't have a lot of bylaws. Late into the success of a family office, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, will they sit down? FaysaI Holding is a great example of that. I would tell people to look to it, where he brought in some of the best talent in the world, in-house, legal and governance-wise, and it for about a year, maybe 2 years, for them to perfect getting to know the family, getting to know the dynamics, and then to perfect the governance metrics for this family as a unique family. And it took them, I think, as I said, a few years and a lot of investment into this. But that move will create sustainability, will create perfect succession, will create longevity of the investments of the family, et cetera, and will minimize family fights. Inevitably, families fight. Inevitably, families argue. If you have that level of governance, which we don't, which we need to have, then fights are less common. I always say, if it's on paper, you can always just say, these are our family laws, this is our family code. And so when people have that in the back of their head, They're not going to open up their mouth and say, but why this and why that, to open up arguments. They know it's the way it is. And then next generation, eventually it's just, this is the way we do business, like a corporate, more than too close of a family. So I hope that answers some way your question.
We see a lot of family offices in here. Al Ghurad is one example. They are managing big corporations, and then there are others as well. So do you think some are different than others?
All families are different.
Like in terms of advancement, in terms of structuring, in terms
Absolutely.
of... Yeah.
Yeah. So FaysaI Holding, who I gave an example of, their structuring is years ahead. I mean, you've seen, and I don't even have to name, certain families that have separated at the core. Brothers from brothers, fathers from son, who either gone off on their own direction or been completely ousted. So these things happen. And, unfortunately, doing business with family is not a science, and it can never be a science, but you can mitigate the damage done by setting these core things up, these core elements up. And there's a lot of good talent around the world. And it's something that I also help personally on my free time, mostly with a lot of friends. And they say, this is what happened in our board meeting. And I go, let me come in for 2 weeks and try and, do some damage control. So it's something that I believe heavily in. If in decades ago, I believed heavily in the way we invest, I'm now taking a step back and really focusing heavily on how family dynamics. And ultimately, every family will, second generation will start to think about it, and third generation. And my passion at this stage, as it was for startups, now I think the startup ecosystem is doing very well. It doesn't need me. It doesn't remember my name. It doesn't. I'm very quiet. I sit back. I still see my companies. I still will invest from time to time. I still will advise on boards. But now I'm focusing mostly on family offices, family businesses. I think it's extremely exciting, extremely unique. What I loved about startups is that every startup was different. Every founder was different. Every situation was different. It got my mind active and working and learning. Once you've met up with thousands of companies and founders, etc., you see the pattern and you understand. Now engaging in families, you said, are any families different? From brother and sister, from brother to brother, and their children down, will be fundamentally different. Never mind actually different families. It's they're worlds apart. Not just in terms of, and people mistake their approach towards investment. They might have a better approach towards investment, certain families, but the approach towards family and how to deal with family might be flawed. And so as such, you'll be very successful, but behind the scenes, the family is very fragmented. And I'd say that I would rather keep my family close than my pockets full.